Hello everyone, Mike Harris from Golf Monthly here, and you join me on the range at West Hill Golf Club in Surrey. And in today's video, we are going to be looking at one-length irons and whether or not you should consider them if you are looking to change your irons for the 2020 season. Before we get into the video, I'm going to remind you to subscribe to the Golf Monthly channel if you don't already, and also turn on the notifications. That way you get to find out whenever we release a new video, be it a gear release, a bit of tour player content, or some instruction to help you play better golf. So, one length, Cobra one length irons. Very interesting concept that Cobra brought in a couple of seasons back, and I have been playing them all of this year. I've played over 50 rounds of golf in the 2019 season. I put the irons into play as part of a project that I've been doing with Cobra Puma Golf, and I have really enjoyed using the irons, but are they for everybody? I think you need to understand the one length principle before you really consider whether they might be right for you. And one length is all about having all of your irons, and that can be anything from the 3-iron right through to a lob wedge in one length, and everything is built or everything is set up to a 7-iron length as well. So the idea is you have the same ball position and you put the same swing on it for every iron in the bag. It's a really interesting concept. Obviously, Bryson DeChambeau, who I think everyone will be familiar with him, the golfing scientist, he's been the real pioneer behind this. He's a Cobra staff player. So he's been using one length out on tour very successfully as well, certainly this season. So it's something that's been gaining certainly recognition and a bit of popularity amongst golfers. I think that when people start to learn to play golf, tends to be the 7-iron that they're learning with. It's a club that I would say everybody is comfortable with. So it makes sense to build the set around a club that people are comfortable with. Cobra achieved the one length principle by building all the clubs that you have one length around the same specifications or the same swing weight as your 7-iron. So in the longer irons, they take weight out of the head, anything up to 15 grams. And in the shorter irons, they add weight, anything up to 25 grams. And that makes all the clubs that you have one length in your set feel the same throughout the swing. So again, that fits in with the idea of putting the same swing on it, regardless of whether it's a pitching wedge or a 5-iron or utilities if you go further down the bag into utilities. And so you can go all the way from hybrids and utility irons right up to your most lofted wedge. Now, when I went through the fitting process, I tried everything from utilities through to a lob wedge in one length. I really struggled, I have to say, with those speciality wedges, if you like, the sort of 50 degrees and upwards. And in the end, I went with variable length on those. I think that's more about my short game, which isn't the strongest element of my game. I felt I needed to stick with what I knew. I quite often gripped down on my more lofted wedges, and I felt with a longer shaft that was more difficult. So from pitching wedge is my most lofted one length club. And initially I started off at 5-iron on one length, but I got on with those longer irons so well that I then switched my King utilities from variable length in the 3 and 4 utility to one length, and I got on with them a lot better. So it's been really interesting to play all these rounds this year. I've also been using Arcos to track my performance on the golf course, and that's given some really fascinating data looking at the performance of all my irons. So iron play has typically been one of the weaker parts of my game, but I would say over the course of the 2019 season, it has improved, and I would definitely put that down to one length. So what do you think about one length irons? I'm really interested to know what everyone's opinions are. Are they just for eccentrics? Are they just a fad? Or could it be something that you'd consider changing to in your iron lineup? Let us know. And also, perhaps if you already play one length, share your experiences. Let us know what have been the good and the bad bits about playing one length irons if you already do. If you're thinking of switching to one length, where do you think your lineup would start and stop? Would you have speciality wedges in one length? Would you have your utilities in one length? Or would it just be in those sort of core irons really from sort of 4, 5 through to pitching wedge. Really interested to know what you all think. Leave comments below in the section. I'll reply as well and share some more of my experiences of playing one length this year. So after more than 50 rounds playing with my Cobra one length irons, I feel pretty well qualified to give a verdict and look at some pros and cons of going one length. Let's look at the pros first. Undoubtedly, I have become more consistent through my entire irons lineup. So from those utilities through to my pitching wedge. I feel more comfortable with the longer irons, and my 6-iron has definitely become my favourite club in the bag. It bears out in the data when you look at it in Arcos. I'm actually hitting more greens with my 6-iron than I do with my 50-degree wedge. I think that says not only that I'm very confident with the 6-iron, but also my short game, that wedge game from 100 yards and in, I do need to do more work on it, but that's not down to one length. So number of pros there. Also, I have to say, I've really enjoyed chipping or hitting those bump and run shots with the 3 and particularly the 4 utility that are now one length. I wasn't playing that shot when I had the variable length utilities in at the start, but since I've moved to one length, I feel really comfortable with those utility clubs. Great off the tee, out of bad lies and from the fairway as well, and say that added dimension of being able to use them around the green. What about the cons? Well, I would say it does take a little bit of time getting used to one length. I don't think you can put them straight in the bag and expect to start playing your best golf. You need to spend some time on the range, getting used to keeping the same ball position, trying to put the same swing on it. So there's a bit of adjustment to be done there. I think getting the set makeup right from the out again is something that is absolutely crucial. Working out where to stop and start on one length. Say for me, I was lucky that I was able to switch during the season to the one length utilities, because variable length I was definitely struggling with those. You know, as I became more proficient with the longer irons in the bag, these utilities I found harder to hit. I think there's also a couple of other issues that are worth highlighting. I think you get a flatter ball flight with your longer irons. So if you play a course where you need to, you know, your longer irons, you're really looking to hit high shots into the green for soft landings, possibly that might be a little bit of an issue. I think that the utilities and perhaps the 5-iron does send it out on a lower flight. I play quite a lot of links golf, so actually that's not a problem for me. Gapping as well in that top end of the bag. When you look at my Arcos data, I'm hitting my 5-iron and 6-iron almost exactly the same distance. So that does leave quite a gap between sort of where my optimal 6-iron is and where my 4 utility is. So that is a bit of an issue. I think that is something that is borne out by other users when they look at their Arcos data. So, you know, that's a bit of a consideration to take into account. Say 6-iron is my favourite club in the bag. I'm flushing it probably more than I flush any other iron. So that might have distorted the data a little. But as I say, I think that getting used to the irons is definitely, you can't just stick them in and expect to, you know, be playing consistent golf from the get-go. So you need to factor in some range time to really get used to one length, that whole principle of, you know, how everything feels, that ball position, same swing. And also I think you just have to have an open mind to one length as well. If you are somebody who is very set in their ways, like things, you know, particularly so, if you haven't changed your irons for a long time, then maybe going from a set you've been quite comfortable with to a new set that's one length might be a big jump. So think about carefully what type of golf you are. Have you got an open mind, or if equally you're a beginner and looking for more consistency from the off, I think one length is a really good option. So my overall verdict, I think the big question is, would I play one length again in 2020? And the answer is yes. I've really enjoyed the extra consistency it's given me in those longer irons, and I've found that haven't struggled with the longer length in the 8, 9, and particularly the pitching wedge. In fact, pitching wedge has become one of my more consistent clubs attacking the green from sort of 110, 115 yards. I feel comfortable with that. It took me a little bit of time to get used to. But definitely, I've enjoyed playing one length. I'd be very happy to play one length again next year. So if you're in the market for a new set of irons, you're looking for more consistency, if you love how you hit your 7-iron, wish you hit your longer irons a bit more like that, I think one length is definitely worth investigating. But for now, from West Hill, it's goodbye.